Hello, 1, 2, 3. Brendan Glasheen.
Am I seated where you would like me, Matt? Slot.
Hello.
Hey, happy hump day, boys and girls. You found us, and probably not by accident. We are, after all, the Sweat. Adam Kaufman, Brendan Glasheen.
Yeah, we're with you for the next 60 minutes, talking a lot of football, insights on the Cowboys, the latest on tonight's 10-game slate on the Diamond, and even some news about Dancing with the Stars.
You've come to the right place. We are full service here. We're going to begin on a field where men wear helmets, pads, and hit each other really, really hard, just like we do during our breaks. This is the NFL Price Check. Time to welcome in DK contributors Steve Buchanan, Jeff Ulrich, and the fantasy girl, Rosalie Michaels. Bukes, anything to say to Brendan to kick us off here?
Well, I was actually a little upset that he spoiled my Dancing with the Stars acceptance speech, so I guess I'm not going to do that anymore.
Okay, Jeff, anything for Brandon?
No.
Good.
All right, enough with that. Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson has the 11th most fantasy points a game among QBs at 22.3, but he has this week's 5th highest quarterback salary at $6,400. Assuming you got all that, Bukes, is he worth the price at the Chargers?
I mean, the problem with Watson is he's just not rushing the ball right now. He's only had 8 attempts for 45 yards in the first 2 games of the season. And his offensive line is just going to get him killed. Like, he's already been sacked 10 times already. Just doesn't look good right now. Doesn't look comfortable. And you look at the Chargers defense at 2,500, they feel like a really, really good value in week 3. I mean, like I said, this is just an offensive line that's just allowing him to get absolutely wrecked back there. And without the rushing, it's just he's not someone that you're going to look upon week by week. You know, you look for someone like Josh Allen who has the throwing ability, who has the rushing ability. That's a fantasy quarterback you want to take. Watson right now, until something either changes with the offensive line or he starts rushing some more, it's kind of someone that you want to stay away from. He's just too expensive.
Jeff, your thoughts on this salary, $6,400 for Deshaun Watson?
I mean, Steve makes good points, and they're valid points. I mean, the pass rush for the Chargers here could definitely get off. The Texans' O-line still isn't any good, even with Tunzel there. I still like this spot as a GPP pick for Deshaun Watson. You got a bit of a depressed price. You got guys like Brady and Dak Prescott in front of him who could have softer days just because they could just be blowing out and just handing the ball off against such weaker opponents. The Chargers haven't necessarily been that great a defense to start the year. They've allowed multiple passing touchdowns each of their first 2 games. Number 1 wide receivers have been absolutely torching them. So going with the Watson and DeAndre Hopkins stack here is actually kind of appealing for me in big GPPs. You're going to get really depressed ownership on these guys, considering everyone's going to be on that Baltimore KC game. So I am interested in it. It's a GPP only thing, but I think for big fields, you definitely should be looking at Deshaun Watson this week.
My season-long team loves the sound of that, Jeff, so keep on going, pal.
Rosalie, your turn.
I'm actually going to agree with Steve here. And I mean, there is one caveat. I mean, we're looking at what the Texans are doing right now offensively. And yeah, he's only had 8 rush attempts, but 2 of those were touchdowns. So that's a pretty good return on investment there in those rush attempts. But, you know, when you look at the Chargers defense, they've only given up 1 total touchdown, rushing touchdown to their running backs. And that's what we have to look at for Deshaun Watson. They're only throwing the ball about 52.7% of the time, so they're running the ball a lot more. But what we want out of Deshaun Watson is those rushing touchdowns and those long bombs to DeAndre Hopkins, but it's just not happening. And Steve's right. There's much better options like Russell Wilson on the slate.
Well, we couldn't only have one guy from the Panel B podcast. Let's go to Julian Edlow. Your thoughts, 6,400 for Deshaun Watson, sir.
Yes, our better third of the Panel B podcast, of course. I am out on Deshaun Watson this week. I don't see it. The 2 rushing touchdowns have really saved his fantasy value so far, although he was able to sling it a little bit in New Orleans in the opener. But this is just, I don't like the way that this offensive line has looked. It's a formidable opponent against the Chargers here. And the Chargers have gotten gashed on the ground. Look at what Marlon Mack did to them in Week 1. Kerryon Johnson did very well against them in Week 2. This is a spot where Carlos Hyde, who's looked surprisingly well on the ground, would be my lean in terms of playing a Texan in this game. So you've got Dak at 6,500. I know the concern is 21.5-point favorites, that maybe he will get shut down in the second half here. But look at Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady. They had huge fantasy days against Miami. I think Dak will be able to do the same. And if I'm not taking somebody at this price point, I'm going under 6K. We've got Josh Allen looks good. Matt Ryan looks good. Jameis Winston's cheap. You can go below 5K and take Mason Rudolph against the 49ers. So if I'm paying up, it's for Dak. If I'm going cheap, there's plenty of other good options.
Well, we've got a few studs on this show, but the Giants, they only have one, and his name is Saquon Barkley, the only player on the slate actually priced over 9K, by the way. G-Men in Tampa this weekend. Eli Manning will be on the bench, while Daniel Jones, I know, just mourn the poor future Hall of Famer. He's going to be under center, though. Daniel Jones, the guy that nobody wanted to draft. So, spending up for Barkley, Jeff, smart play, what do we think?
Hey, look, the Giants still have Evan Ingram here, Kaufman. Let's not forget about him, a stud in his own right. But,
I'm sorry, I was very disrespectful.
Saquon is shaping up as an interesting play this week, and it's not necessarily the matchup, but Tampa Bay's rush defense is improved. You have Vita Vea in there, a big run stuffer. They've held up really well the first 2 weeks. Obviously, stuffing Christian McCaffrey at 37 yards and 16 carries. It's pretty impressive. At the same time, this narrative with the QB change has me really interested in Saquon Barkley. Again, it's kind of like the similar story to Deshaun Watson. If you're going to get him at suppressed ownership here, you might as well take a shot. We know he's such a good receiver, can work in the pass game. And Tampa, they might be good up the middle, but they're not so good outside pursuing. So, again, it's the same story for me. I'm interested in Deshaun Watson and big field GPPs. If everyone's going to be out of him, everyone doesn't like this QB narrative or whatever, I like that if you're going to get lower ownership on these big stud players, because Saquon Barkley is such a good receiver that I still think he carries a lot of upside this week.
Felix, can you justify 9,100 on Saquon here?
So what I'm concerned about is that people just roster Saquon based on the brand name of playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who generally are a terrible Swiss cheese defense. But Jeff is right. This rush defense is very much improved this season, and we saw it on Thursday Night Football last week against Christian McCaffrey. Saquon is by no means a cash play, but he is a nice GPP pivot because Christian McCaffrey will be the chalkier play here. His price has dropped down to, I think, 8,700 because of that poor game against the Bucs. And now he gets to face off against the Cardinals in a real bounce-back spot. So I prefer McCaffrey here, but as a GPP pivot, I think going to Saquon in this spot makes some sense. Maybe Danny Dimes is the real deal, and this offense gets cooking.
Well, Rosalie, as we know, yes, plenty of people do opt to play Saquon or any running back because of the Swiss cheese defense for Tampa Bay, but there's also just the name brand recognition of Saquon. Is that reason enough to play him?
No, you can't just go based on name. Did anybody ever see that movie that Eddie Murphy was in where the Distinguished Gentleman, he got into Congress based on name? Let's not do that, people. We got to pay attention here. So, I mean, I think the chalky play this week has got to be Zeke versus Miami. But you have to look, everybody's going, hey, Tampa Bay saved, shut down Christian McCaffrey. Actually, you look at the play split, it's actually the Panthers that shut down Christian McCaffrey. When's the last time we saw him have that little in terms of how much he was targeted? He only was in on 22 plays last week, and Cam threw 56 times. So that's a huge difference from what's normally like a 30 to 41 kind of split play there. But, I still don't like Saquon. The Tampa Bay defense is totally different. This Todd Bowles defense is totally different than last year, and they're showing up and they're doing the good things. So I don't like Saquon this week just because of that matchup. I think that we're going to see the same amount. He's had 17 plays versus Dallas and didn't score a touchdown. He had 25 plays versus Buffalo and had a better game. But I think it's still going to be the same split, and I think he's going to be shut down. We're not going to see as much of him. I think they're going to throw a lot to Evan Engram, though. There you go, Jeff.
All right, Buke, speaking of Eddie Murphy, let's go to our resident Professor Klump. What do you have?
Weird comparison. The Giants have lost by more than 2 scores in both games this season, and Barkley's come away with at least 21 DraftKings fantasy points in both games. Like, I can never make a case and say, yes, you should bench Saquon Barkley, or yes, you shouldn't use Saquon Barkley. Like, he's almost matchup proof. And with Daniel Jones just kind of getting his feet wet here, it could be after handing off the ball a little bit more. There's some quick checkdowns here to Barkley, which in a PPR format like DraftKings is perfect. I have no problem using Barkley in this matchup here. Like, I just don't see a scenario where I would not feel comfortable in using him. The game script doesn't matter. Like, he will get his touches regardless of what the score is. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with using Barkley in this game.
Would you have preferred Dr. Doolittle?
I would prefer Steve.
All right. Well, look, I got producer Tom spotting my jokes.
Steve's not
already,
in the interest.
so
It's early. We had another 50 minutes to get Steve going. All right. 2-star wideouts have new quarterbacks. Michael Thomas is 7,400 without Drew Brees. He has Teddy Bridgewater now, or Taysom Hill. They might use 2 guys. Yep. Saints are in Seattle. No Ben Roethlisberger, which means Juju Smith-Schuster will try to help Mason Rudolph. And Juju is 6,900 in San Fran. You've got to pick one, Rosalie. Who's in a better spot, or forget all that, you're fading both of them?
Yeah, Steve, I'm going to send you The Distinguished Gentleman. It's a great movie. Need to see it.
All 4. Let's go, babe.
Yeah, and Boomerang, too.
That's right. I'm going to fade both, actually. Juju, you know what? I need to see more out of this Pittsburgh offense as a whole before I'm going to trust this. They've looked terrible. They just have not looked good. So Juju is a fade for me simply because of that. Michael Thomas, I really like Teddy Bridgewater, but there is a little rust there. I think we're going to get there. Mike's still going to get the targets, and I think he's going to find the end zone this week. He has 2 weeks without a touchdown, so I think he's going to find the end zone. And let's not forget that Mike was one of the biggest voices to keep Teddy in this offseason. He really likes and has a lot of faith in Teddy Bridgewater. So I think there's a synergy there that we'll see as the time goes on. But for this week, at that price, I want a lot of targets and I want multiple touchdowns. And there's a crap load of wide receivers that are cheaper and are more trustworthy in these situations to get done. Keenan versus Houston, Watkins versus Baltimore, and the list goes on and on. Galladay. So it could be contrarian if ownership is low enough, but we'll have to take a look and see.
It's a lot.
A crap load. All right.
Yeah.
Jules, follow that up. Do you like Thomas or Juju or neither? You want to fade both of them?
Well, Teddy Bridgewater might have a lot of confidence, or Michael Thomas might have a lot of confidence, rather, in Teddy Bridgewater, but I do not. He looked terrible in L.A., and we still don't even know that he's going to be the starter. Sean Payton put some question in the air in terms of Taysom Hill. If New Orleans isn't afraid to bring Taysom Hill out in packages when Drew Brees is their quarterback, what do you think the split's going to be with Teddy Bridgewater out there? We're obviously going to see a real mix, and that's going to make it tough for a receiver to get in a groove on the road at 7,400 in Seattle. So Juju is my pick here. I think Mason Rudolph, profiles as the more standard, general, stand in the pocket, launch it deep quarterback. He's going to help Juju out more. You get some savings here. You got 6.5, 7-point dogs on the road here, so there should be a game script that sets up for Juju to be targeted. I think Juju is a worthwhile tournament play. But really, I'll probably wind up fading both of these guys. Julio Jones at 7,300 in Indy. Keenan Allen at 7,000 hosting Houston. Those are my 2 favorite wide receiver plays on this slate.
Crap. There's all the crap we're talking about. Yeah. So
crap load.
Yeah, and Juju is $500 cheaper than Drew Brees for this slate. Steve, are you also fading both of these wide receivers?
Yeah, speaking of crap, thanks for that crap setup. I like Juju.
I told you it wouldn't take long.
Hey, I don't know what anybody else is thinking, but when Mason Rudolph came into this game, I actually felt like the Steelers had a legitimate chance to win that game. He looked good. He looked good in the preseason. He looked good in that half of football that we saw in week 2. And I really like Juju's matchup. He's going to face off against Kawan Williams out of the slot. He's been targeted against 8 times, allowing 6 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown so far. If Mason Rudolph is going to not go to James Washington, his buddy there, Juju's going to be the next in line there. So at 6,900, I have absolutely no problem playing him here. I think we're disregarding how Rudolph looked and has looked in 2 years in the preseason. Bridgewater hasn't thrown a meaningful pass since 2015, besides last week, and I don't even know anything that he threw could qualify as a pass because everything looked at even more wobbly than when Joe Flacco throws the ball, and that's really saying something. So I have way more faith in Juju here. I actually like him in week 3, so I'd definitely be taking him.
Well, Jeff, it seems Steve has just referenced crappy preseason football to back up Mason Rudolph. Are you going that route as well?
Look, I don't know about all this crap stuff, but
guys, enough of the potty talk already.
Rosalie started.
I think Juju's going to be the number 1 wide receiver on this slate. I'll throw that out there right now. Steve hit on it, but I'll even take it even further. The 49ers are absolutely terrible against guarding slot receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, 70% of his snaps so far in the year out of the slot. The Pittsburgh's still playing him there. Look at what Tyler Boyd did, who takes all his snaps from the slot last week against them. He had 10 catches, 110 yards. He also had a touchdown called back. Steve hit on Mason Rudolph. His 7 targets to Juju in the second half there. They just missed a long touchdown. I honestly think that you should be playing Juju in every single lineup this week. That's how confident I am, and I think he's going to come up with a big day. Pittsburgh's slated to be passing a lot.
There's the hot take stand.
Schuster, you can forget about that Michael Thomas guy.
All right. That was fun. I don't mean to speak for everybody, but Jeff likes Juju this week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, Adam here got some insights earlier on the Cowboys as they get ready to drown the Dolphins. That's next after we hear from Pat Mayo and friends.
Miami at Dallas.
Oh, Lord.
Minus 21.5. Over-under is 47. Tim's fantasy superstar, Michael Gallup, is now out 2 to 4 weeks. But now we get Devin Smith, which is really nice. I'm going to make this very quick. I've taken Miami the first 2 weeks because I'm like, hey, how can teams not cover? I'm now doing the opposite. Until Miami can cover one of these stupid lines, I'm picking against them. I'm taking Dallas.
I don't think this one's enough, Dallas.
Agreed. Until I see Miami play like a professional team.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah, exactly.
They have to actually show me some life whatsoever. I
could be quick because he'll have a lot to say. I like the Jets in the next game because I actually think they care and will try. Even though how screwed they are, I do think that there is a level of caring there that it's not the same. It's not the same as what's going on in Miami.
I did promise
Miami makes
myself
zero effort. Zero.
I couldn't lay 2 20-digit spreads this week, but I knew I'd have to lay one of them. We're just going to lay Dallas. Dallas is my suicide pick this week as well.
Dallas is my suicide pick as well.
Same.
Let's talk.
It's going to get pretty boring, I think, if Miami is what they are.
Well, they go on buying week 5, and then what are you going to do?
Yeah, when they play the Bills the second time and the Patriots again.
No, I mean, the Miami has a win on the schedule. They'll beat the Jets, which is going to be hilarious.
It's starting to look that way. Well, they play the Giants as well.
They play the Chargers next week. They can win.
What are you talking about?
If there's a team capable, it's us.
Come on now. They're not that undercursed. Unless Rivers, has a heart attack this week or something.
I can't take the Chargers in the suicide next week because I've already used them.
it is the move. In these, we already talked about, fancy plays in suicide leagues. You got real fancy and you got lucky last week because the Jags probably should have won that game. If we had super 16K cameras, maybe it would have shown Fournette was in. I don't know. Or maybe they just call a better play at the goal line from 2 yards out. Maybe they win that game. Either way, I think you just pick against Miami until they show some sign of being a normal. I'm not talking about they go out and they have to come within 2 seconds of winning a game. Just don't lose by 35 points every week. Until that's the case, I don't care if you have to burn New England, which we did, or burn Dallas or whatever. Just pick against Miami every week. That's the move. You don't need to be Philly's a 6.5 point favorite. Take Philly. That could work. That sounds like a recipe for getting yourself knocked out.
Yeah, it also sounds like a recipe of the 500-man pool being chopped 420 ways.
Whatever.
I'm just
maybe when you get to the end of the season and you run out of the teams that are playing against Miami because you've already used them, that's when you have to make a more concrete stand. But the whole key to these eliminator
you haven't
pools,
used them if you're
which every single person seems to forget every single year, just stay alive as long as possible.
It's survive and advance. That's the name of the game.
Worry about next week.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't worry about burning the
I
good
couldn't
teams.
stand when we
Now, you
used
could
to
take the
work in
Patriots-
that when we used to work in that newsroom, and some of those, I'll call them kids because I'm older than them. They like had their survivor, like they'd show you like week 1 who they planned on using every week.
I mean, we say it on the show.
Not week 1. You don't like know who you want to use week 14.
Oh yeah, they would have it the entire
And
schedule.
like Ben broke it. Is that reason? Like there's so many variables.
That's silly.
Team A sucks. Team Y is amazing. Like
2 games, a pair of lopsided wins in the division for the Cowboys, and you know what? 3-0 really should not be a problem this weekend against Miami. Let's talk about it with longtime DallasCowboys.com beat writer Nick Eatman. Nick, how's it going?
It's going good, real good over here.
Yeah, you guys can't complain. You got 2 convincing wins, better than 30 points in each of those for the offense. So boil it down. What's the boys' single biggest strength right now?
I really believe, and this is what they've wanted all along, I believe it's the offensive line. I think when you've got an offensive line that's playing like it is, and Travis Frederick back, and Tyron Smith healthy, and Zach Martin healthy, that offensive line does anything that they want to do, and it really sets the tone. And so they can run the ball. Obviously, Dak's playing great, but Dak has time to get through his progressions and reads and, finding these guys that are open. Kellen Moore's getting credit. Dak's getting credit. Zeke's getting credit. Everyone's getting credit. Receivers. But I really think it's offensive line where it kind of starts there on that offense.
There aren't many with the perfect record naturally, but how about the most glaring concern if you had to pick one out?
That
hard to find one, huh?
It's not, you would have to say the defense, something on the defense. They're not, how about this? They're not getting sacks and turnovers. That's what they're not getting. And to be an elite defense, you've got to get sacks and turnovers. And so the offense is outscoring people. Well, there's going to be some games when it just doesn't happen, where they're not scoring as many points. Can the defense take the ball away? Can the defense get off the field? They're getting off the field better than anyone on third down, but or they're up there in third downs. But they need to get more sacks and turnovers.
It's not debilitating, it is a bummer. No Michael Gallup out for a little while now, surgery on his left knee. The receiver leads the Cowboys in catches and yards through the 2 games. He's obviously been good, but when you have Amari Cooper, you have Ezekiel Elliott, how big a loss is this really?
Oh, it's not a huge loss for the offense. I mean, we're going to find out. We're going to find out, has Gallup made that big leap? Or is this a Kellen Moore new offense where the next guy's going to get his yards? And I'm not ready to say that it's the Packers or the Patriots where they just roll in different guys for these quarterbacks. Not saying that yet. But we're going to find out how much of a drop-off there is. I think you'll see a lot of Devin Smith this week. Randall Cobb can do some inside-outside things. But, and I think they'll lean on their tight ends even more. Blake Jarwin. Maybe Tony Pollard can do some things. So they got a lot of weapons.
Well, Jason Witten has touchdowns each of his first 2 games back from retirement. You mentioned Devin Smith. Cedric Wilson maybe is another guy to step in. I mean, who do you think does come in and fill some of Gallup's lost production, provided that someone singularly is able to do so? I guess if we're talking fantasy production, is there a guy you like?
Well, if we're talking fantasy, I'll just tell you I picked up Devin Smith on my team.
There you go.
Just because I believe the way this coaching staff typically like to work, they don't like to change 2 positions for the sake of one. So if you moved Randall Cobb to the outside, then somebody else, then he slide him back in on the inside. I think Devin Smith is the guy that comes in and starts, and he can do those things that Gallup was doing on the outside. He can stretch the field, of course, as we saw, and I think it allows Cobb to do exactly what he was doing, and Cooper to do what he was doing on the other side. I think Devin Smith's a good play this week because not only do I think he starts, but if the game gets out of hand like it probably should, he's still going to be the type of player that stays in there and needs the reps. He'll get in there. I would imagine he plays throughout the whole game. And so I just think he has an opportunity to kind of rack up some pretty good points this week.
Zeke's getting a little bit more run, literally, actually. 13 carries in week 1, 23 in week 2. Not too involved in the passing game to this point. What do you expect in week 3 versus a Dolphins team that has allowed nearly 200 rushing yards a game so far?
Yeah, I expect that he'll go out and play well early in the game. I don't think this will be one that he'll play 4 quarters. And I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but we're talking a historically bad start here for the Dolphins. I mean, I've never even heard of the Rochester Jeffersons, but they were in the league in 1923 when they had the worst start, and the Dolphins are like right up there. And it's historic. And so I think the Cowboys are really good. And so this just shouldn't be close at all. And this isn't about, well, yeah, it's the NFL. It is the NFL, but that team in Miami is just not looking like one right now. And so I think if the Cowboys, we'll see what Jason Garrett, he practices what he preaches all the time. You focus on yourself. You don't focus on the other team. If you focus on yourself, you'll go and they'll dominate. So to answer your question about Zeke, I think he plays a little bit, but I don't think he plays a lot because I think they're looking for ways to get Tony Pollard the ball.
Yeah, I know we like to say any given Sunday. I just don't know how many games Miami would win on Saturdays right now, the way it's been playing. Outscored 102-10 through 2 games. 3 touchdown favorite for Dallas going into this game. How can the Cowboys avoid taking this team lightly? In fact, I mean, really, does it even matter if the Cowboys take the Dolphins lightly because they are that bad?
Well, here's what's not going well here's another thing not going well for the Dolphins is all week the Cowboys are talking about they got to get off to a better start. They've been down 7-0 in these first 2 games, and then they've kind of coasted. So the focus for them is to come out fast, and you don't want to give them any kind of momentum at all. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys win the toss to take the football this week, as opposed to the last couple where they've tried to defer. So I think that they really want to start fast. I think they're going to jump on them early. I don't really see them looking past it. Jason Garrett coach teams really have not done that. You could say other things about his style and his history as the coach here, but when it comes to beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, especially at home, he's been as good as anybody.
All right, excellent. Guess you just heard from me, but you know what? More importantly, Nick Eatman, he was great. But let's welcome back Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler as well. That must mean golf talk, right? Only reasonable decision to put these 2 mortal enemies together. Plus, of course, Pat Mayo was not available. Hi, boys. PGA better or worse now? Wow. I know. Joaquin Niemann, the favorite at plus 1,300. Should these odds be better or worse this weekend? Sanderson Farms Championship. Reed.
Yeah, this is coming from the guy who is replacing the 2 hosts that weren't available today.
Thank you very much. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Look, his odds.
Well, you're not wrong.
No, I'm not.
Let him continue. Go on.
We'll go to Joaquin Niemann. Look, this guy won. He was going to win at some point. Jeff and I know the talent this guy possesses, so we backed him quite a bit. And in my article last week, yeah, he was the top bet in terms of coming into this week. But who's going to be better than him? I mean, Brandt Snedeker is the second in odds, and he hasn't played at this tournament over the last 5 years, or I think ever. So, yeah, I mean, when you look at Joaquin Niemann, he's top in strokes gained approach, bigger, better game, par 5 scoring, what have you. But there's a lot of guys, if you just look at the historic win rate at this tournament, guys that are at plus 100 odds or plus 10,000 odds have won this tournament. So they should be right where they're at because he is the best in this field, but I'm not betting him at this number.
Jeff, you willing to pay up?
First of all, if there's anything that could bring Reed and I together, it's you, Kaufman. So.
I appreciate that. We go way back. Nice haircut.
Look, Niemann is obviously fully deserving of favorite status this week. He might have been deserving of it last week, but I mean, you just look at how he finished last season. I mean, multiple top 5 finishes, wasn't missing any cuts, ball striking, putting. It was all coming together, and obviously it came together for him last week. But with the way he was putting here last weekend, and just if you look at the past winners of the Sanderson Farms, how well they have putted the last 4 or 5 winners, first or second in strokes gained putting for the week here. He's definitely deserving. He's coming in with the best form with that flat stick, and the rest of his game has obviously, like I said, been polished for a few months now. So guys like Scotty Scheffler, Brandt Snedeker, they're okay, but Niemann is a class above them right now.
Byung-Han An comes in at plus 2,000. Should these odds be better or worse? I'm going to go to Reed first on this one because, I got the pronunciation right.
Yeah, congratulations. I thought Koff was going to hand that one off.
Yeah, he was working on that all afternoon.
Yeah, good for you.
Nailed
Good thing
it.
Graham Dillette's not in this tournament.
Delete.
Look, Byung-Han An, he is a guy that, it's hard to get off of this guy because his strokes gained approach, his irons are elite. Even when he's in good fields, you like him at the plus, around the plus 2,000, or excuse me, plus 6,000, plus 5,000, because of what he can do with his irons. It's just his putting. I think over the last, this entire season, I think he only gained strokes putting on like 4 or 5 of his tournaments, and that's just not going to cut it. Here especially, these 2 tournaments, and especially in the swing season, you see putting really start to show itself in terms of a priority stat, even though it's extremely variant. Guys like Sungjae Im at that same number are a lot better, in my opinion, in my estimation, when you look at just what he's been able to do over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And especially coming into this, you have Sungjae, who's number 1 in strokes gained putting, and his birdie or better's gain. The guy can really score over the last 3 tournaments. Give me guys who can make birdie and Sungjae M at plus 2,000 over Byung-Hun An.
How about you, Geoff?
Look, Byung-Hun An isn't even a tough name, first of all. We should have given him like Dylan Fratelli or Peter Uihlein and see what they came up with. Who knows what would have came up with.
We all have different levels of reading.
Dylan.
But, what Reed said about Sungjae Im, I definitely agree. He's around the second favorite in odds, or tied with either Snedeker or in thereabouts. And I do think Sungjae Im is deserving of it. But I do think these odds on Byung-Hun An could be a little bit shorter. You just look at the quality of fields here. Other than the kind of young players that are coming in hot, like Neiman and Sungjae Im, who else is there in this field? Benny An has finished runner-up like 3 or 4 times now on the PGA. He's all over it at the Wyndham. Fell short a little bit, not really to a fault of his own. He kind of got beat by JT Poston, but this is a player who should already have a win, if not for like a little bit of bad luck and just a little bit of choking down the stretch. He's certainly a quality enough player. And in this field, for him to be kind of in the 20 range, I actually think that the odds should be worse. And by worse, I mean lower. So I think plus 2,000 for Benny An is actually a pretty good price. You can get him up even higher, that's better. But I kind of like him in these odds this week.
If Dave Chappelle was watching, he would have loved that reference. Cameron Champ is going to win because his name says so, Reed. Plus 6,600. Better or worse?
They should be worse. I know he's the returning champ, so whenever you get the returning champ at plus 6,000, of course they should be worse. But this guy hasn't made. He's just. If you just look at his stats over the last however long you want to go back this season, outside of this win last year, it's really been bad. He had a couple of stretches where in the playoffs where you could have maybe using him some big GPP tournaments, but this guy really doesn't have anything going for him. If you want to go even lower than that, Emiliano Grillo is someone that I'm really looking into first in strokes gained approach for the last 6 tournaments. But Cam Champ, yes, his name does fit the bill to do well. There was a lot of hype with him last season, and then he won, but they just faltered off. So they should be better for us, but getting a past champ at this number is not too bad.
Well, and Jeff, technically, he's always the returning champ. What do you think here?
I think Cameron Champ had a really hot start to the year last year putting, kind of like Neiman did last week, and he just kind of tailed off from there. His game hasn't been the same since. He put it together a little bit at the end of the year last season, but expecting him to repeat here, I think that's a little bit far-fetched. His game just isn't in nearly the same shape. Reed mentioned Emiliano Grillo. I'm kind of more partial to Wyndham Clark at these odds, who has shown at times to be a really, really proficient putter, especially on Bermuda grass. So if you're looking for another young player to kind of get behind at those odds with a similar type of game, Wyndham Clark would be the guy for me around these odds. But Cameron Champ, I think you're just good enough fading him. Like I said, we just haven't seen anything near the same form since his win last year.
We're about to run out of time in this segment, Reed, so give me your slate-approved pick for this weekend's Sanderson Farms Championship, please.
It's going to be Aaron Wise. He's par 5 scoring, birdie or better gain. He obviously hits the ball a mile, so if that helps at this course, which it can, give me Aaron Wise.
Wise choice, Jeff.
I'll stick with Wyndham Clark, but I think it's a good value this week in the 8K range. Like I said, really proficient putter, which you need to be at this course. So Wyndham Clark.
I got nothing for that one.
Good. Okay. Guys, you're delightful. Thank you very much. Jeff, we'll see you around. We've got baseball coming up next. First, Johnny Avello is here to break down one of the biggest competitions going. Stay with us.
Dancing with the Stars started season 28 last night, and here's the latest odds. The number 1 contender as of now is James Vanderbeek. He was my top choice even before they danced the step last night, and he didn't disappoint. Favorite at 4-1. Hannah Brown. She was on The Bachelorette. Did a great job last night. I think she's well liked. She's the second choice, 9-2. Allie Brooks. She made a few mistakes last night. I think she has some dancing experience. She'll be a contender, 5-1. Karamo Brown did a lot of steps incorrectly, but I look for a lot of improvement from him and also be a fan favorite. He's 6-1. The 5th choice is Ray Lewis. I think he gave all he had last night. I think the crowd will continue to like him. He's 8-1. Kel Mitchell's the 6th choice. Humor is going to bode well on the show, and the audience is going to vote for him. He's 9-1. 7th choice is Laura Elena. She's a reality show person, and usually reality show people last maybe halfway through the show, and that's what I see her doing at 14-1. We have Kate Flannery. I have her in the middle of the pack. She's 15-1. Lamar Odom. He lowest score tonight. He may survive one more week. He's next to last choice at 75-1. And the long shot of the field is Sean Spicer. Not a good night. Came out with a lime green shirt on. I don't think that helped either. He's 100-1. These odds are for entertainment purposes only, and we'll update them every week throughout the season.
All right, welcome back. Time for some baseball. And you know what? You are just in time because it's rapidly approaching. 10-game slate in the majors. DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne and Pierce Dietrich. Nice enough to stop by. Hello, boys.
We are chasing or fading. These two will agree or disagree with the following statements about tonight's ball games. We're going to begin in the Bronx. The Yankees can clinch the American League East with a win or a Rays loss. Bombers are minus 295. Home favorites against the Angels, while the Rays are in L.A. facing the Dodgers. Tampa is a plus 110 road underdog. Chase or fade, Gary, and Yankees will clinch the AL East tonight, and tell us how.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you don't chase this, really. First and foremost, the Yankees, like you mentioned, are overwhelming favorites at home tonight, as they should be. They are 22-6 in their last 28 home games against a losing team. Conversely, the Angels are 6-21 in their last 27 games on the road against a team with a 500 record or better. So it really seems like this is all going to come to an end before the Rays can even take the field. But even if the Angels pull off the upset, as I mentioned on the show yesterday, you've got the Dodgers playing at home, who are now 52-16 at home in their last 68 home games. Sorry, Red Sox fans, this is happening.
No Mike Trout. No Shohei Ohtani. Really depleted out there.
Pierce, what do you think? Definitely happening tonight?
I'm with Gary and you Chase here. The Dodgers-Rays game is a lot closer maybe than Gary wants you to think. I mean, the line is really close, but we kind of got to stick with the logic that Gary used last night, and that's that the Dodgers are really good at home. They're the second best team in terms of hitting at home. They have a very strong bullpen at home, second in terms of xFIP. And that's what it's going to be. It's a bullpen versus bullpen game again. And so you got to give the slight edge to the Dodgers there. And yeah, the Yankees should destroy the Angels. Dylan Peters, 2 home runs per 9. He struggles against right-handed bats. He's facing a lineup full of right-handed bats. He gives up a 270 ISO. That's probably not what you want to do in New York. That's probably not going to work out very well. The Yankees should just absolutely crush tonight.
One of the highest totals on this slate, 10.5 runs for the Phillies-Braves game. These two teams combined for just 9 runs last night. So chase or fade, they hit the over tonight. Pierce, go right back to you.
Yeah, I'll chase. And it's mainly Zach Eflin. You look at his last 3 games against the Braves, and a 478 xFIP, a 1070 xFIP, and a 587 xFIP. He struggles against the Braves, and it makes sense because it's a lineup full of left-handed bats. And Eflin doesn't have an answer for left-handed bats. He mainly just throws hard stuff, a fastball and a slider 80% of the time. He has nothing to keep them off balance. In that fastball and slider, it's a 350 WOBA. Occasionally he throws in a sinker, which is just a bad fastball for a 440 WOBA. He's in trouble tonight. And then you look at the other side of the field, and Tehran, sure, he has good traditional stats, but his xFIP's pushing near 6. And he gave up 3 home runs in his last game on Thursday against the Phillies.
Garion, what do you think?
I might actually lean towards the under here. I'm with Pierce entirely about the reason to feel confident this game goes over is Zach Eflin. I mean, Eflin, throughout his career, we're not talking parts of 4 seasons, has yet to find an answer for left-handed bats. He's got a 366 career WOBA. Now we're talking a sample size of over 800 plate appearances with left-handed bats against Eflin. So we've got 5 left-handed bats, 5 very capable left-handed bats in the lineup tonight for the Braves. With Freeman, with Albies, with Joyce. Markakis is back. Brian McCann is getting the start behind the plate. So you can feel good about that. But, look, I know Tehran's advanced numbers are not kind. But at the same time, he just seems to pitch well in Atlanta. He's only given up 3 home runs in his last 63 innings at SunTrust Park. His opponent Woba is just 291. His FIP is in the mid 3.5s, and his last 8 starts at home, the under is 6-2. So I'm going to lean under here, but I'm not 100% confident about this one.
All right, let's zone in on one individual now. That's Garrett Cole. He has the highest projected strikeout total on this slate tonight, 10.5, with Houston hosting the Texas Rangers. Cole has 6 straight starts with double-digit Ks, but chase or fade that tonight is the night that run ends, and he goes under that total. Garion, what do you say?
I'm going to fade this. Look, this is sort of, in a DFS perspective, akin to like James Harden's run last season. Like, you just kind of have to keep riding it out because it keeps working. And Cole, his last 6 starts, he's struck out 51% of opposing batters.
Ridiculous.
And that actually goes up somehow. I don't know how that number could even get higher, but it goes up to 54.5% when he's facing left-handed bats in that span. The Rangers have 6 lefties in their lineup tonight. And trust me when I tell you, they are not quality left-handed bats. A couple are, but towards the end of that lineup, things get real bleak real fast. Really, the only possible way this goes wrong is A.J. Hinch. And we saw this kind of play out last night. Justin Verlander only threw 87 pitches across 6 innings. Definitely could have worked deeper into that game against Texas. So if Hinch is starting to feel a little bit like he's got to save these guys for the playoffs, that could maybe send this thing sideways. But still, if you guarantee me 6 innings of Cole tonight, he's still going to strike out 11 guys.
All right, Pierce, does the streak end for Garrett Cole?
No, I fade that. This is just a dream strikeout matchup. You got 7 batters in the Rangers lineup that strike out more than 20% of the time. On average, the team strikes out 24% of the time against right-handed pitching, and that's just against average right-hand pitching. That number goes up when they face Garrett Cole. And it has, you look at July 11th when they face Garrett Cole, 50% K rate, but it doesn't end there. May, when they face Garrett Cole, 54% K rate. So basically the numbers that he's been pumping out the last couple weeks or last month, striking out 1 of every 2 batters, he's already done that against Texas, and he should continue to do that. 10.5 might be low.
Wow.
All right, finally, let's take a look here. Just DFS focus. We need a slate-approved pick, gents. Who's your lock for tonight's 10-game slate? Pierce, go ahead.
Well, if you want to get to Garrett Cole, then you kind of got to go with the chalky, high-ownership Adrian Hauser facing the Padres, who strike out a ton against right-handed pitching, and Hauser is no slouch either with about a 24% K rate. It's a little risky, but it's the only way you're going to get to Cole and have some decent bats.
Mr. Thorne, going in a different direction?
I really like Hauser too, but let's go with an offensive piece that I think is someone who should be priced around $5,000 but isn't. So you may actually be able to afford him if you are going with Cole, and that's Kyle Schwarber. Schwarber has kind of had the quietest 37 home run season I can remember. He's got an OPS above 1,000 going back to the start of August against right-handed pitching. And Tyler Mahle, much like a guy we talked about already on this show in the form of Zach Eflin, is just someone who has never been able to get left-handed bats throughout his career. So I like Schwarber a lot at 4-4.
Gary and Pierce, thanks very much. Speaking of those Yankees, we talked about them a bit in this segment. Aaron Boone joined us earlier to discuss his team's preparation for October. We'll get to the manager, but first, we hear from the Panel B boys chatting on Jalen Ramsey's murky situation in Jacksonville.
If you look at his numbers so far this year, he's actually been not great. Like, he's been targeted against 17 times. Allowed 11 receptions, 118 yards, and he's already been scored upon twice.
Right.
So
Watkins got him at least for 1 of those bombs, right?
So correct.
Really sways those numbers.
But in a sense, it's not the shutdown Rams that we've been seeing. Like, if you're going to start demanding a trade, at least have the numbers to back it up. Like, it's early. Like, give him that. But
he did shut down. He did do very good against Hopkins the following week.
No, and because just going back to those touches.
No. Yes.
Oh, maybe I misheard your question.
It wasn't even a question. It was a statement.
Oh.
I said he did shut down DeAndre Hopkins the following week.
I'm sorry.
DeAndre Hopkins had 9 DK points.
Right. I'm sorry.
Against Jalen Ramsey.
But what I was looking at is,
it wasn't a question. It was a statement, and it was a true statement.
We all make mistakes. Like, me agreeing to do the show with you was a mistake, but here we are.
Gotcha.
But in terms of touchdowns, like all of last year, he gave up 2. The year before was 3. So we're already at the, so that's just why I was curious by the timing of him because, starting off slow.
I think the timing of it is he saw Minkah Fitzpatrick get what he got and sent into a much better situation. So why not? He could view it, the agent could talk with the team, view it as a win-win. You're going to get, depending on what team you actually do the deal with, likely 2 first-round picks, at least one that's, if you do the deal right with the right team, could be at least in the middle of the first round and not at the end.
And it sounds like the Chiefs are the ones who are going hardest, which wouldn't be that
won't be
beneficial
the first
for the
round.
Jaguars.
But then you can pressure them to add more to the deal. Reports were that if it was an AFC team, they'd have to include a player as well.
Right.
Caliber of that player, TBD. But
a first rounder in Mahomes is kind of a steep price.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if that one goes through.
We once again welcome Yankees manager Aaron Boone on the Sweat. You have a chance to clinch the division tonight with the win, Aaron, or a Rays loss. I'm sure it would be a lot better with the win. CC Sabathia is on the bump for your squad. How much of a relief would that be to lock down the AL East title tonight?
It would be awesome. I mean, one of the specific goals we had when we got to spring training this year was we want to win this division, and a lot of people have put a lot of work into putting us in this position. Hopefully we can go out and get it tonight, but it'll be very satisfying considering all this club's been through, all the contributors we've had to this team this year. There's been so many people that have played a role in it. So hopefully we can go out and get it done tonight and have a fun evening.
You're in a race with the Astros for the best record in the American League. How difficult is it to not scoreboard watch their games, knowing home field advantage throughout the postseason is on the line?
Well, I watch the scoreboard every day, so I don't know if it doesn't stress me out or worry me or anything like that. But in the middle of our game, these ballparks that we play in now, the scoreboard's right there. So I watch and see what's going on around the league. I'm a fan of the game. Like, I go home and watch highlights and see what other teams are doing all the time. So that's just part of my daily life that frankly doesn't change now that we're here in September.
Sure. One of the best pitchers on your team returned this week in Luis Severino. He looked great against the Angels on Tuesday. 4 innings, 4 strikeouts, no runs, 47 strikes over 47 pitches. How would you describe his season debut? And next question after that, what are the next steps for him to build up for longer outings?
Yeah, it was really encouraging. Sevy's been, we feel like, building some really good momentum over the last 6-8 weeks, just with how he's picked up the pace from a rehab standpoint, getting on the mound. Every step of the way has gone pretty smoothly for him this time around. He's gotten a little bit better each time out in his minor league rehab starts. And I thought yesterday was another step. I thought he was a lot sharper. I thought his fastball command and life on the fastball was excellent. His secondary pitches were a little bit better than his last time out. Still probably not even quite as sharp as we hope to get him, but certainly all in all, a really strong outing for Sevy and one that I know he feels good about and we feel like is another big stepping stone for him.
So while you did get one pitcher back, you lost Dylan Betances, who partially tore his Achilles in his season debut over the weekend against the Blue Jays. He did his usual hop off the mound in celebration, came down awkwardly. Severino, I think, said after the game he called the situation just sad, and I saw some of your comments too. How's he holding up?
I think he's planning on coming back in here today. I didn't see him after the game last night. I actually just called him before I got on with you. And, I think Dylan's beloved in this clubhouse. Obviously a guy that's been here for a long time, that's from here, that, has obviously been one of the elite relievers in the game for the last 5 or 6 years. So your heart kind of breaks for him, and knowing what he's been through this year to work his way back and to have kind of a freak injury happen. We're just sad for our teammate right now. But look forward to him getting back here, getting healthy, and supporting us through what we hope is a long playoff run. But right now we hurt for a teammate, but know he'll be supporting us in a big way.
We've talked to you a few times throughout the year, Aaron, and the guys just keep battling and battling through these injuries. specifically on the pitching. What's your feeling right now on the staff as the playoffs near?
I feel like we're in a pretty good place. CeCe's making his second start back from injury. Came off, I thought, where he was really sharp in his last outing. Obviously James Paxton, the second half here, has really, really pitched well and pitched like the guy we hoped we traded for, and feel like he's in a really good place just physically and from a game planning standpoint and how he wants to attack. Obviously, Sevy getting back in the mix now is huge for us. Massa, we know what he's capable of. J Happ, we feel like is trending in the right direction. So we're having a lot of things going on right now that are good. Domingo Germán's been amazing for us all year and probably obviously our most consistent starter all season long. So we feel like we're in a pretty good place here. Obviously 10, 11 games left now. We feel like we're going to have some really good options and choices heading into October.
Let's go to some of the position players. Gary Sanchez has battled injuries pretty much all season, most recently a groin pull. What update can you give us on his health?
So he's doing pretty well. In the early days here, this is day 4 or 5 or whatever it might be. We feel like he's doing pretty well and feel optimistic that he will be back before the season ends. And the same can be said for Edwin Encarnacion with the oblique. He's doing really well here in the early days. Feel like with both of them, it's probably going to be close, but we feel a little bit optimistic that we will have them by the end of the season.
All right, it's almost time to say goodbye, but let's not get lazy. Time to prop up and end this show strong, Adam.
NFL propped up. Looking at interesting prop bets for the upcoming NFL Week 3 slate with Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow. We got the Fantasy Girl, Rosalie Michaels, and RotoWire's Jerry Donabedian. Hello, everybody. We all know the Patriots are favored by, I think, 1,000 points against the Jets this weekend, roughly. So Tom Brady, thanks. Limited participant in practice today. Nobody's worried about that at all, according to all the reports. So you can still bet on the team prop of the Pats scoring over 32.5 at minus 122. Of course, they've done that each of their first 2 wins. Steve, usually unreasonable. That's what Julian told me, but I'll ask you anyway. Minus 122, reasonable in this game, Bukes?
I don't see why not. Like, if there's anything that we learned from the Dolphins game, and we actually have known this before, is that Bill Belichick does not care about pulling his starters early. Like, Tom Brady is throwing the ball, they're up by 48 points, and he's still out there chucking the ball. They do not care, especially against somebody in the division and the Jets. Like, if they're not going to pull their starters in a game, this would be one of those games. So I think it's totally plausible. They're just going to have their their foot on the pedal for the entire game here. He don't give a what. They're going to keep going out there, putting the points on the board. So, yeah, I think it's totally plausible.
Yeah, Julian, to that point, obviously, if there's one thing that we know of Belichick, he likes running it up against the Jets when he has the opportunity.
Yeah, so the good news here is that the Pats have gone over this number in both of their first 2 games and are averaging 38 points per game. The bad news is that this is probably the best defense they're going to face. I mean, Miami's doesn't even count, and the way that the Steelers' defense was in Week 1, I think this Jets' defense showed us a little bit more on Monday Night Football against the Browns, even though the rest of the team was so laughably bad. I'll lean with the over here because I trust the Patriots' offense pretty much as any unit in football. But I don't think this is necessarily a strong spot, especially with the extra juice that you have to lay. These division games can be a little bit of a grind. The side that we're going to talk about next, I think, is much more intriguing.
Okay, we're not ready for that, though.
That's called a tease.
Yeah, thank you. Rosalie, how about you?
Yeah, I'm looking at the history of Adam Gase here, and I'm thinking he might not be that good at this football thing. Especially when it comes to the defense. You look at the defense the past 2 years in Miami, and they were allowing for 2018 27 points per game, and then in 2017 24 12.5 points per game, and that's average. That's not taking into account the bad teams too. Yeah, this Jets defense in a certain way looks kind of good because they've only allowed 2 passing scores so far. But if we look back, Tom Brady burned them for 4 touchdowns the last time they met. And if you watch that game last week, I'm going to disagree with Julian a little bit here because, yeah, they only gave up 23 points to the Browns. But if you watch that long touchdown bomb that to OBJ, I actually thought that the Jets defender was out there blocking for OBJ. He was running ahead of him. So I don't know what they're doing. So, yeah, give me the over 32.5, 40 points for the Patriots this week.
Yeah, I think 35, 36 times historically in NFL history, teams have been favored by 3 touchdowns, as the Patriots are in this game, more than that even. They've always won. They've only covered in 11 of those games, though. So, Jerry, what do you think here? Is this going to happen?
I think my instinct is take the under just because it's such a high number here. But just looking at the way the Patriots treat this, I mean, last year, Week 17, they were beating the Jets 31-3, and with 3.5 minutes left, Tom Brady threw a touchdown pass to Julian Edelman, knowing that they needed to keep those guys healthy for the playoffs. I mean, they might pay for that at some point in terms of an injury to a guy who's in the game at a meaningless point, but it's pretty clear after last week that's their plan. So, like, yeah, we're going to see Sony Michel, Tom Brady, Julian Edelman deep into the fourth quarter, and I think might happen late, but I think they'll get over that 32.5 mark.
Let's remember, too, talking just pure talent. Yep. All indications are Antonio Brown is going to play in this one. So that's just another elite target that Brady has to throw to.
Meanwhile, the Jets team total is set an over-under of 10.5 points with Luke Falk as their quarterback. The over is marked at plus 112. The under set at minus 143. Our buddy Julian earlier said he was intrigued by this. So, Jules, which direction are you leaning in what is expected to be an extremely awful, lopsided football game?
Yeah, so I know Jerry just said his natural instinct with that big 32.5 number was to play the under. And when you see 10.5, your natural instinct has to be to go with the over. However, I will lay the juice. I will take under 10.5 here. The Jets offense doesn't stand a chance. They can't move the ball, and I know they looked a little bit better with whatever his name is coming in for Trevor Siemian in Monday Night Football.
Luke Falk.
Yeah, Luke Falk. Yeah, he... Whatever, like, they can't move the ball. Like, Le'Veon Bell is going to get 11 catches for 47 yards or something like that. They'll maybe churn out a couple of drives, but even when they got going on Monday Night Football, they still couldn't even score even when they got the ball down the field. This Patriots defense is one of the better defensive units that we've seen in a long time. 3 points in 2 games, and I know it's against a hurt Ben Roethlisberger and against this Miami team that doesn't even count as an NFL team right now.
Still counts, though.
The way that this Jets offense looks and the way that this Patriots defense looks at home in Foxborough, I don't think they're going to get there.
All right, Rosalie, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I'm going under. You know what? This Jets team is going through QBs like I used to go through men in my dating days.
Whoa!
So, I mean, the only one that looks like they're even trying out there right now is Le'Veon Bell. He had 31 touches this week. Everybody else just seems to be giving up. And one guy, as great as Le'Veon Bell is, he cannot carry this team. They're not matching his efforts. So I'm going under.
Pukes, did you...
Like many of Rosalie's past relationships before her current one, fails, right? Fails like David Fails, the new quarterback that the Jets also signed. So it makes sense. Perfect.
Pukes, how do you follow up with that?
Well, first and foremost, because she hadn't met me before, so that's why.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That's absolutely it.
Yeah, you do this on your own time, kids.
Love life aside.
Oh, God.
Like, the inclination is to take over here because of 10.5, but it's like, do I really want to sweat the Jets not scoring 2 touchdowns in a game? Like, that's a tough sweat. Like, that is a total degenerate, like, Julian move to take the under and, lay some money down on
You're
that.
going on here shooting your shot. At least I gave a play.
But it's totally plausible. The defenses look fantastic. The Patriots always take out the number 1 receiver. So if we take Robbie Anderson out of the mix, it's Jamison Crowder. Demaryius Thomas isn't even in the game. So whoever they have 4th, 5th string and Le'Veon Bell. I mean, you don't really feel great about them scoring a lot of points here. So I think 10.5 under. I think the legitimate chance of that happening is really good. So I would never lay money down on it myself. I'll live vicariously through Julian, but I think 10.5 under.
As everyone does.
It's way more plausible than
this show is getting weird, man. All right, Jerry, why don't you get involved in the weirdness?
Yeah, this is. I think this is like as big of a stay away as you'll ever see. Like on the one hand, laying the juice for an over under of 10.5 seems ridiculous. On the other hand, like thinking through this game, I'm just like, how are they going to get to more than 10 points? It's just even if they move the ball a little bit with those short passes to Bell and Crowder, like they're going to end up kicking field goals. So I don't know, man. Maybe they get I'd probably, if forced to do it, I would go with the over and get the better odds. Maybe they get a punt return touchdown or a long touchdown. That can always happen. But I'm not feeling good about it. Like I don't understand how this team is really going to move the ball with any consistency. So it's kind of hoping for a few lucky plays.
All right, real tight on time. Other game with the big spread is Dallas and Miami. Julian prop for over 5.5 total touchdowns in the game, plus 120 odds. So let's start with you here. Can and will the Cowboys score 6 touchdowns this Sunday in 10 seconds?
They can. I don't know if they will, so that's why I'm going to stay away from this. We don't know if they're going to keep their foot on the gas or not, which is why the best bet in this game is another low team total. Miami, under 13.5, under 12.5, whatever you can find. Miami cannot score.
Good Pierce impression. Bukes.
Yeah, the Cowboys aren't like the Patriots. They'll pull their starters if this game gets out of hand, so I'm going to go the under on that one.
Jerry, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with these guys. I think the under for Miami is actually the better bet here. I really don't think you're getting more than 1 touchdown out of Miami, and Dallas has pulled their starters in the past when they've been in that position. Obviously, not in that position as often as the Patriots, but yeah, they're not going to have Dak Prescott in there if they're up by 5 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Rosalie, wrap us up, and don't be afraid to let Bukes down gently.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Zeke in this. They're not going to wear themselves out against Miami for any reason. They're going to take the W and move on.
All right, that'll do it. Glad they didn't have a chance to talk there at the end there. The Sweat airs 6 to 7 Eastern weekdays. We'll certainly discuss Titans-Jaguars tomorrow. Bye-bye.